Chapter 2: The Turbulent Teenage Years. Adolescence arrives not as a gentle transition, but as a torrent, sweeping David into a world of new freedoms, risks, and revelations. Chapter 2 traces his journey through canoes, camps, and curtain calls, where the lessons of brotherhood, belonging, and resilience are forged in the unpredictable currents of teenage life. Through triumphs and turbulence, David begins to discover the person he is becoming, shaped by both the shadows and the light of these formative years. Fallout at Cohoes High: Coach, Court, and Consequences. The gavel came down in Wynantskill, but the echoes rang loudest in Cohoes High. I didn't need a suspension slip or an expulsion notice to know I'd been marked. The halls had a way of carrying news faster than the PA system. I wasn't David Liddle anymore. I wasn't even Coach, not in the same way. I had become a headline without a newspaper. Teachers who once chuckled at my antics now studied me like a fuse already lit. Mr. Gorleski, usually quick with sarcasm, now held back his humor, as though my presence dimmed the room. Coach Loudis, who had once treated me with measured respect, offered only nods from a distance, like he didn't want my shadow anywhere near his. Among students, the split was stark. To some, I was a legend, the kid who got arrested, clocked his best friend, and still walked back into school like nothing had happened. They whispered my name like it had weight. Coach, they'd say with a smirk, like I was untouchable. But to others, I was radioactive, a cautionary tale in sneakers and a hoodie, a boy who'd crossed the line so many times that no one knew when he'd finally fall off the edge. The nickname I'd once worn like armor started to feel like a brand seared into my skin. Coach meant weed. Coach meant keg parties. Coach meant trouble. Even when I wasn't hustling, people assumed I was. They expected me to have something in my pockets, to throw the party, to cover the bail. And when you can't meet those expectations, the popularity you thought was power starts to rot into paranoia. Academically, I was surviving on charm and scraps of effort. I'd show up just enough, do just enough, smile just enough to scrape by. But the suspensions stacked like poker chips. Detentions, too. I became a regular voice over the loudspeaker, except it was never my voice. Just my name, echoing down the hallways, followed by groans or smirks. Community service was another kind of prison. Washing North Greenbush police cruisers, scrubbing elementary school hallways, there was no escaping the humiliation. Every soap bucket and mop stroke reminded me that people knew. Everyone knew. And still, the kids came. For the joints, for the parties, for the stories. But friendship was fading. I wasn't their confidant. I was their supplier. A transaction more than a bond. Liddle. Did I know that these ripples weren't temporary? They were foundations being laid. That sophomore year wasn't just a season of mistakes. It was the scaffolding of an identity I'd be climbing up and tearing down for years to come. Fallout at Cohoes High: Coach, Court, and Consequences. A modern reflection for parents. What the 1981 collapse reveals about today's teens. Parents today often believe the world their kids inherit is unrecognizable from the one we grew up in. On the surface, that's true. Smartphones, social media, online bullying, vaping, anxiety epidemics, fentanyl, instant gratification, infinite distraction. But beneath the technology and headlines, the core pressures teenagers face haven't changed much at all. My 1981 fall from grace, the arrests, the courtrooms, the school fallout, the whispers, may sound like a relic of another era, but the emotional engine behind it, the fear, the shame, the identity crisis, the desperate hunger to belong, that's timeless. Today's kids may not be stealing vodka from a neighbor's basement or running from cops across North Greenbush lawns, but they are running from expectations, from loneliness, from trauma, from the feeling that they don't quite fit into the mold adults insist they occupy. The world is louder now, but adolescence has always been deafening. 1. The identity trap. In Cohoes High, I wasn't seen as David Liddle. I wasn't even seen as coach anymore. I was seen as the screw-up, the court case, the cautionary tale, the kid who was going nowhere fast. Today's teens fall into traps just as quickly. Only now, their identities get cemented even faster, sometimes in the span of a viral video, a Snapchat screenshot, or a rumor that spreads across dozens of phones before they even get home. One mistake can become a permanent identity in a digital world that never forgets. Parents need to understand, kids don't crumble because they're weak. They crumble because the pressure to perform a version of themselves is relentless, just like it was for me. 2. The popularity illusion. Back then, being coach made me feel powerful, until it made me feel hunted. I carried weed because people expected me to. I threw parties because people demanded it. I soaked up attention because I didn't know how to say no. Today's teens deal with the same trap, only magnified. Popularity is now quantified in followers, measured in views, validated in likes, compared endlessly, always on. Kids curate versions of themselves that become cages. I didn't need Instagram to feel trapped by my own reputation. The hallways of Cohoes High were enough. 3. The ripple effect of consequences. When I got arrested in Wynantskill, the fallout didn't end at the cruiser door. It followed me into classrooms, onto school buses, into kitchens, onto streets, into my father's silence. Today's consequences reach even farther. A teenager's mistake can be recorded, reposted, shared, archived, weaponized. A record that follows them into adulthood long before they understand adulthood. But the core lesson remains unchanged. Kids rarely understand the scale of consequences until it's too late. Parents need to teach their children that small decisions can snowball into avalanches, because adolescence always underestimates gravity. 4. The emotional blind spot. The scariest part of my downfall wasn't the courtrooms or cop cars. It was the way adults responded. Many assumed I wanted attention. I loved trouble. I enjoyed the chaos. I didn't care. The truth? I cared too much. I felt too much. I was drowning, not bragging. Modern parents often miss the same signals in their kids, not because they don't care, but because the chaos looks different now. Kids who are moody, detached, sarcastic, reckless, numb, fine, are often kids waving silent flags. They're not broken, they're hurting, just like I was. 5. What parents need to understand. Teenagers today are not softer. They are not weaker. They are not more fragile. They are overstimulated, overexposed, and overwhelmed in ways previous generations can barely fathom. But the emotional architecture underneath, it's the same. Kids want belonging, identity, to be seen, to be understood, to not disappoint, to not feel alone. The real cautionary tale isn't that I stole vodka or outran cop cars. It's that I didn't know how to say, I'm not okay. And the adults around me didn't know how to recognize the words I wasn't saying. 6. The takeaway. My fall didn't start with a bottle or a bad decision. It started with silence, mine and everyone else's. Parents must remember, ask twice, listen past the jokes, watch the quiet moments, pay attention to the shifts. Notice who your child becomes when no one is watching. Because the truth is simple. Kids don't wake up broken. They break slowly, invisibly, over time, until the moment they collapse face first into the desk. And by then, the warning signs have already been there for months. Thank you for spending this time with me, the Pussycat Wizard. These moments we share, whether in shadows or in light, are threads in a much larger story, one I'm honored to tell with you beside me. As always, the journey continues. The next chapter subsection is waiting, and I'd be honored if you'd walk with me a little further down this road. Until then, keep the wonder alive, and I'll see you in the next episode of Little Did I Know.
In the quiet of my mind, a tempest rages. Mother's convictions, the script of ages. Her voice a beacon in the fog of my prose. David, she chides, in secrecy it goes. Beneath my breath, a silent plea. Mother, I hear you, but can you hear me? Your Savior, your faith you implore, I embrace. Yet within, I wrestle with my own grace. Torn between the divine and my truth. A son's love, a personal sleuth. Have you surrendered? You persistently ask. In your version of Jesus, should I bask? Jane, your call for aid. He's different, you say. A label pre-made. In your eyes I see the fear of a son's path, not straight but clear. I stand at the crossroads of self. My identity not just a book on the shelf. Mother, your love I'll always hold dear, but my journey is mine. Let this be clear. Cross paths